And thanks very much. Now I want to throw it open to questions from the floor. Some ground rules, first of all. You may have a wonderful speaking voice. You may have a voice like a bullfrog, in fact, but you'll need a microphone so that everybody can hear the questions that you ask. So you'll need to attract my attention with an unmistakable gesture. Secondly, you may be terribly well known. You may, in fact, be notorious, the length and breadth of the civilized world. But can you let us know who you are and, if it's important or applicable, what organization or company you represent before asking any question or making a particular comment? And thirdly, if your question is addressed to a particular member of the panel, can you indicate that rather than the panel as a whole? Who'd like to kick off with... Yeah, distinguished-looking gentleman at the back row there.
I'm Brian Smith. I'm a British food technologist, and I'm proud of it in this Team GB year. I welcome the fact that the government is driving information to consumers, and consumers are becoming aware of nutrition. And we must applaud companies like Nestlé and Boots for improving the quality of nutritional foods. But what we have in the UK is a whole swath of small, medium enterprises who have healthy foods, or they think they have healthy foods. And this has all been brought to light recently because the European Union has received over the last 6 years 3,250 applications for health claims, not nutrition claims, health claims to be allowed. And out of this, only 250 have been allowed in the last few months. And this points up the fact that there's a lot of...
Can you come to the question that you're going to ask, or else I'll invite you up onto the panel and you can do your own speech. But
the question is, can the government and all the nutritional knowledge we have in the UK be brought to bear, like Team GB have done for cyclists? Can we harness the nutritional knowledge and the health knowledge which is available in the UK in the same way that this research is applied to health and medical science? Can it be applied to food, please, for the benefit of our SMEs, not the legal framework?
Okay, Anne, I think that's squarely in your court.
Yes, I mean, I think we're getting there. There are several things we have to do, is to harness the information that's out there and package it in a way that we can impart it to consumers. That you rightly mentioned European legislation. That information has to be credible. I think that government and some of the lobby groups have suffered from a lack of credibility. In other words, wide-sweeping claims from all sides, actually, from those campaigning in favour of healthier lives and those selling unhealthy products. Actually, it comes both ways. It's got to be credible. It's got to be believable. It's also got to be accessible. People have got to understand what it means for them. And I think that last bit, we've been bad at doing that. Because, as I say, despite the fact that 150 minutes of exercise once a week actually reduces your risk of heart disease significantly, well, why doesn't that get there'll be people in this room who don't do that. Why not? When you know that you'll live longer. And that's a question mark over something we haven't achieved yet.
Stefano, would you address this particular issue? I mean, the claims that industry makes for its products?
Of course, we would like to have a better regulatory environment. We try to do what we can. We have done a campaign internally for this. But if we could have a better understanding and clearer rules, probably this could help.
Luis, is there something you'd like to
Yeah, I think that we really welcome that the EFSA efforts to be more tough in regulation, because basically health claim is something that you need to prove, and you need to be able to demonstrate, and this is not just a gimmick, because companies are here to stay. Are you here to present products that should have not only a benefits? One thing is the health claim. The other thing is good education. You can do a lot, but good education, good information. That's what packaging and communication and advertising is paramount of that. It's not only about what you are going to say as a health claim. Is you can do a lot of things by educating people and telling them to make, I think, as you were saying, that informed choices. making them better understanding on the choices they're going to have. That's why education and information is for me paramount.
And Rita, this falls within your, everything you recommend has a C at the beginning of it, hasn't it? Clarity, consistency, in this case, credibility.
Absolutely. I think, you know, one of the great corollary effects of the digital age is that these days there is no substitute for being who you say you are and doing what you say you're going to do, and that of course runs to claims as well. So on the upside, if there are any claims that aren't, you know, borne out by the facts or the substance, then these will emerge, and the thing is that people will tell other people whether or not they're the case. So there's the legislative thing, but also there is the human thing, which is that if you're not delivering what you say you are, then people will find out about it, and with a scale and a speed these days that absolutely takes your breath away.
Okay. Does anybody else like to raise a question or make a point? Yes.
Hello, I'm Nick Stenning from Vitacress. If I could make a rather more specific point about fresh fruit and vegetables, and whether the panel think that we are investing enough in the 5-a-day scheme, and whether indeed that as an industry we invest enough in R&D in actually finding out more about the nutritional benefits of fresh fruit and vegetables.
For those people who are not resident in the UK, the 5-a-day scheme is encouraging people to take a certain amount of fruit and vegetables every day. Anne?
I think we've been very successful, you know. I think almost, if you look at awareness of 5 a day, most of the public know. So, and being a public health minister has its downsides. If I ever eat anything that isn't either vegetable or fruit, people say, oh, should you be eating that? So there's sort of general awareness that I should eat 5 pieces of fruit and vegetable a day. I think the trouble is that that is seen as a substitute for not doing all sorts of other things. So it's fine if I eat 5 a day. That means I can therefore spend the rest of the day eating 5,000 calories. You know what I mean? We have to be very careful, and so your request to invest in it, I think, I mean, there's always ongoing research, and we need that, and I think we're getting more sophisticated, and coming back to this issue of credibility, you know, everything we do has to have increased levels of credibility, because actually consumers are better informed. But interestingly, they're better informed and we're fatter, so, you know, there's a mismatch there. But I think it's a wider message than that, so I wouldn't single out fruit and veg on its own, because, say, accompanied by 5,000 calories, it's not great.
The other three members of the panel are really, in one way or another, marketers. I mean, at what point do you start meeting resistance? At what point do people say, why are they telling me what to do all the time? Read all the time.
Well, yes, absolutely, and particularly, I'm afraid to say, when it comes from the government, you know, it is rejected. But I think what's very interesting here, and just on the fresh fruit and vegetable stuff, you know, I find it very ironic that the healthiest, overtly healthiest food in stores gets the least amount of information. You know, that somehow that all feels naked, as though you sort of take for granted people know what that's about, and that so-called health foods have ingredients lists that are as long as your arm and have lots of packaging and everything else. And I remember several years ago talking to a certain organisation about, you know, basically how do you make broccoli sexy? And it was a tough one. It was a very tough one because, again, it hasn't got all that, hadn't got all that marketing.
Just out of our amusement?
Frankly, you need to get David Beckham to be eating it. That's what, and actually, you know,
or wearing it in his hair, perhaps.
Well, and role models, as we know, are incredibly important, and I think that would be one thing that we could all make sure that we do. So, I mean, obviously, the economics of investing a lot of money in this area, and actually economics of the food balance generally are quite complex. But getting some interesting people to endorse some of this behaviour, I think, could be extremely powerful.
Stefano, as far as fresh fruit and vegetables are concerned, Boot sells more and more of this in its meal deals and so on?
Yes, I have to say that we have a clear request from our customers, because we are always trying to follow what our customers want in this sense, and of course we try to offer the best we can. But I believe that all the campaigns made on these topics are, of course, good and I believe, overall well received by people. I don't believe that people are upset about the fact that the government is trying to give advice and counsel what they have to do. I just believe that there are people who are influenced by this and people who don't care and continue to eat what they want to eat and what they like to eat. Of course, I come from a country where the vegetable fruits, it's really part of our normal diet. And for us it would be inconceivable not to have fruits, not to have vegetables. And it would be difficult to change our habits. The same way, I believe that in UK, where this food is not a traditional part of the meal of people, of course, it will take time to get there. But as always, we don't have to exaggerate because nothing is perfect. There is not a perfect diet.
Luis?
Yeah, I would say that I think a lot is about education, I insist, common sense, and that and balance and understanding. I think even if I am not an English-speaking person, I learned when I was a kid that 1 apple a day keeps your doctor away, and that's something that you really need to understand. And you need. So for me, the question is not only about kind of demonizing foods. On the one side, is about diets. Have a balanced diet. And what we need is all the actors. We need to manage to really educate people about that. And let's not forget one thing, I think it was mentioned, is the personal responsibility. We should not try to basically pass all the responsibility to institutions. There is a trend to always talk about them. There is an individual responsibility that all of us we have. And that's why companies need to also give some push on that. That's my
okay. It's time for one last question. Yes, the lady in the second row there.
Bridget Simmons, I'm Chief Executive of the British Beer and Pub Association. Just to follow on from that, one of the problems we have is that we cannot promote in shops or supermarkets that something is lower in alcohol, because just as you can't promote something is high alcohol, you can't promote that it's lower. And it's perhaps a question for Anne, it's something in the alcohol strategy, but we need more help from the government to make that change so we can encourage people to drink something or to make the choice in the supermarket that they'll pick up something that is lower alcohol than in something else. Beer is obviously relatively low in alcohol. The average here is 4.2%.
Just to be clear, when you say you can't market it as lower alcohol, I mean, you can surely have the alcohol content of any.
You can have the alcohol content, but you can't
say it's lower
promote
than something else.
Yes, exactly.
I understand. Sorry.
Yes, and it's quite a specific point, which I'd need some technical background. There'll be all sorts of complicated things around it. But I think what's quite interesting is that I think nowadays people go into a shop and they're completely overloaded with information and claims. It gets back to credibility and all the rest of it. There's this sort of sensory overload, and you talked about the bareness of fruit and vegetables, and I think that's quite refreshing, really, in a way. Nobody's telling you anything about it, and you know what it is in front of you. And I think, you know, it's very easy for all of us to sit on this panel and deliberately talk about education and information, and I do it as well. But I just want to pick up on the point about personal responsibility. You know, I do say, in defence always of industry widely, you know, nobody's prizing people's mouths open and pouring this stuff, in the case of alcohol, down their throats, or forcing fast food in their throats. And the personal responsibility thing is, I think, something that we do have to have a major shift about. I think what has staggered me about doing this job is just how very complicated this is. It's not simple. Most people who smoke don't want to smoke. Most people who drink too much know they do, which they didn't. Most people who are obese are very unhappy about being obese. And we haven't talked about mental health, but that is in there as well. So I think that the fact that you can promote low alcohol is not necessarily the answer in itself. It's about raising awareness. And people have no idea what they're drinking these days.
Okay, before we stop, there's just one question, if you'll indulge me, that I wanted to ask Luis. He mentioned genotyping, genetic profiling, and how this might be used in the future so that people can manage their nutrition so as to stave off the predisposition to some sort of chronic illness or indeed slow down the progress of it. Just very briefly, how far off are we from that?
Well, today you can already know your DNA. There are ways. It costs you maybe $1,000 and it takes maybe 1 week. But I think it will be clear that in the coming future, 5, 10 years, it will cost you $100 and you will have this kind of information. Now, the question is not only to have that, the question is how are you going to use that? And the question is whether this, and that's what I was talking about, a continuum approach, where diagnostic and prognosis will also help you to manage. Because as Stefano has said before, you know, preventing is cheaper and more efficient than curing. And that's why we need to concentrate more and more in the future. And I think the technology and the science is going to help us. As you have seen in the development of the food industry, from the survival till the today's, always has been the connection between science, development, and then consumer approaches. And we believe that this is an area that we're going to invest more and more in the future.
Okay, we're going to have to draw it to a close there and go to coffee. I mean, obviously, the conclusion of all this is that this all provides opportunities as well as problems, and that we're going to have to think the whole approach to health and wellness and nutrition over the coming years. Coffee is served downstairs. Can I make an appeal to you to take your bags with you? Please don't leave your bags in here, or somebody will come and blow them up, I suppose. But please take your bags with you. And can you be back for the next session at 11:30, please? Thank you very much indeed. And lastly, an applause for our panel.